Hi, I'm Lori Larusso, and this is For Art's Sake. So these paintings, most of the paintings that are here in the gallery are on a shaped panel. The edge of the image defines the edge of the painting. So here it is hanging on a white wall, and you can see that I make use of the negative space. I work a lot with representational imagery. I pull images from a lot of different sources, from magazines, from books, from newspapers. I like old books too, stuff I find at the thrift store, old encyclopedias, cookbooks, etiquette books, health books. Also packaging and wrappers. Food packaging is pretty interesting to me, and I just collect all these images, collect anything that really catches my eye and I think might be interesting, and a lot of that contributes to my finished pieces of work. This piece is called Absent and Overturned, and with this piece I'm considering not just what's within the composition but also what's not in the composition, what's missing from the piece with the use of negative space. A lot of my work utilizes a domestic setting, a lot of kitchens and bathrooms and laundry rooms and things like that. I'm definitely interested in portraying an idea of generic middle America, kind of these ideas that we think about when we think about stereotypical middle America. So color is very important to me and my work. Before I begin a piece, I do a lot of studies, I do a lot of sketches in my sketchbook. I also tend to hang pieces of paper or canvas on the wall and do drawings. A lot of times I'll start with an architectural drawing or photograph and extend lines to open up the space and also eliminate sections of the architecture that I think are unnecessary to the piece. And then I'll do the same with imagery. I'll include different objects or aspects of the environment that I think should be a part of the piece and leave out others that shouldn't. But this shape here indicates where these two kind of kitchen stool chair things were located in front of this bar area, and then the shape over here to the left is that image repeated but overturned. So some of the work has to do with this absence, where things are defined by their absence in particular, but not always. The shapes themselves have a lot to do with intentionality, including only the information that I feel is necessary to complete the idea and leaving out anything extra. And as far as color goes, I'll describe in my sketchbook a lot of times what kind of colors I think I want to use. For example, I'll write down purple, maybe purple and dark purple or something very basic. Color, although it's something that I do a lot of planning with a lot of my work, color is something that is difficult to plan exactly. I have to see it in order to know if it's right and if it's working. Color relationships are also very important with a lot of these browns. I take a lot of consideration, I spend a lot of time considering what sort of brown, a brown is. Is it a warm brown? Is it a cool brown? Is it supposed to look like cherry wood? Or if it's supposed to look like wood, what kind of wood is it? And how does that color relate to the other colors in the composition? Well, this piece being a domestic interior kitchen space, like other works in the show, I work a lot with domestic interior spaces, and kitchens and bathrooms in particular I think are really interesting places in the home. A lot goes on there, a lot of even personal and private, but also family issues are discussed or discoveries are made, or a lot of things go on in those two rooms in the house. So they're very significant. Also the kitchen is where you eat, which is a significant part of, I think, life in general. This piece employs the absence of a refrigerator to the absence of the shape of the refrigerator to show where the refrigerator is located within the composition and within the architecture. And there's something very, very kind of cute but sad about the placemat, the heart-shaped placemat, and the one chair that's all set up. And I guess I'd like to leave that part open at this point to the viewers, for the viewer to think about what that might imply. A lot of the work has some personal meaning. Some of the work is very specific and related to me, and other times I have a general idea of what it means, but it's more open to multiple interpretations, and I think that's definitely true with this piece. So this piece, it's the first piece where I've used kind of a bedroom scenario, which when I speak about kitchens and bathrooms being really significant places in the domestic sphere. I think bedrooms also have their own meaning, but I haven't really wanted to necessarily explore that in my work so far. But this piece does kind of explore the bedroom idea, and it's supposed to be like a child's bedroom, and I think that's indicated by the bunk beds. But what we have here is this little disaster scenario, this house on fire. And the way I was thinking about this was that we have a dollhouse, which is a plaything, a fake version of a real thing. And the dollhouse is on fire, but the fire itself is two-dimensional. As you can see, it's like an insert that goes into the dollhouse. So we have a staged disaster within a staged image, being the painting. I was also interested in some of the directional qualities of this piece, the way the walkway moves towards the end of the painting, and also the ladder, which goes up into the top bunk of the bunk bed, in a sense offers a way out of the piece, physically out of the piece, because a section is cut out and removed. This group of work, these paintings, and there's several more, are all representations of food that are in the shape of people or animals. And I'm really interested in this idea of food that is shaped like super cute versions of animals or people, and then we eat them. It makes me think there's this restaurant chain in Georgia where my in-laws are from, and they just love it, and it's called Ribbon Loin. And the mascot is this pig that has a chef's hat, and he's cooking up some barbecue. There was a sign when I lived in Cincinnati called Tasty Bird Chicken, and they had a large neon lighted sign, and it was also a chicken with a chef's hat on and a spatula in one hand and a frying pan in the other. And just the idea that these animals are kind of cooking up other animals, it's really cute and funny, but it's also kind of strange. And I think it also plays into these other ideas that I'm interested in terms of food and where food comes from. And Michael Pollan speaks of this idea of a pastoral fantasy as to where we think we have these ideas about where our food comes from in terms of farm fresh and things that are labeled farm fresh, and we think that they come from this farm where all of the cows are happy and they're living in these green pastures, whereas in reality, like 90% of the meat that Americans eat is factory farmed, and it's pumped full of antibiotics and so on and so on. So it's just looking at this food that's very playful, but also thinking about some of the more serious issues that relate to food and food processing that's going on right now. The oil-based enamel that I'm using on some of these is very opaque and somewhat reflective, but it contrasts with this sanded down matte finish of the acrylic paint that I've used for other sections of the painting. And so what we have over here is kind of these ghost bunnies that are moving off the panel completely.
Hey, Allison and Dylan, what if I told you you could get a head start on college before you graduated high school and for little to no cost.
Well, I'd ask you what the catch is.
Yeah, how can I take college courses if I haven't even finished high school yet?
That's easy. You simply enroll in dual credit courses at Parkland College.
But won't that be expensive?
Yeah, will all the credits transfer?
Well, most four-year universities accept these credits, and you're actually saving money. Many times the high school will even cover the cost of the course.
I'm sorry, did I overhear you guys correctly? Did you just say that you could take college courses without paying college tuition?
Yeah, all we pay for is the course and the textbook, and we can earn college credit towards getting our degree.
You guys are catching on. The credit works toward a 2-year degree, a 4-year degree, and even toward career certificate programs.
I like the sound of this.
I don't know, this all sounds great, but I already have a busy schedule and I won't have time to drive to classes.
You won't have to. Parkland offers a number of dual credit courses online, in addition to the on-campus courses. Some of the courses are even taught in your high school.
You mean to say that one of the high school classes I'm taking right now could work as a dual credit course as well?
Yes, you should talk to the school counselor to see which classes are offered as dual credit in our school. Then all you need to do is apply to Parkland, and once you're accepted, fill out the application to the dual credit program. You'll need the signature of your parents and advisor for this.
That sounds easy enough, but are there any requirements to being eligible for dual credit?
Yes, you must be a junior or senior in high school, age 16 or above, in order to be eligible for dual credit courses. You can print an application online or visit Parkland's admissions office to pick one up.
Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to see the counselor right now.
Yeah, I don't want to miss out on this opportunity.
Me neither.
Get the ball rolling to a new career with an Eastern Illinois University degree at Parkland College.
Parkland and Eastern really made it work for me.
Now I'm taking Eastern classes on Parkland's campus. I'm working on my bachelor's degree from Eastern without commuting.
Thanks to Parkland and Eastern, I'm reaching my goals.
For more on Eastern at Parkland, call 217-351-2543.
So I have several different ongoing bodies of work, and a lot of them have themes that are related to them. This body of work in general with the shaped panel is one body of work, and I have a series of cakes or paintings that are birthday cake paintings. I have a series of paintings that are like foods with faces. So I have several ongoing bodies of work. Some of the work, sometimes they cross paths and kind of connect from one body to another, where there's actually an interior space or an exterior space that incorporates food imagery into it. And I feel like that, giving the food a surrounding, definitely has a different feeling to it than when I use the food image in an isolated manner. It's not necessarily just about the food, but also the environment. This piece is called Meat Cake. And we're in a red kitchen here. One thing about this piece that is interesting in terms of the way that the panel is shaped is that there's this cast shadow onto the wall, which exists in the same way that an actual shadow might if we're looking at a kitchen countertop, because it's about an inch, 3/4 of an inch to an inch away from the wall. This body of work incorporates real shadows as well as painted shadows. This one is a little strange. I like the work to have a little bit of mystery to it. I think it allows for multiple interpretations, but I'm also interested in kind of what's going on. I talk a lot of times about looking at the complexity of individual situations and how this body of work explores that. This piece is called Unmentionables, which I think, at least in my mind, refers to like under things. Is this a common, right? Like underwear, unmentionables? That's the word my mom used to use to talk about, you know, things you don't want to talk about, like bras and underpants and all that other stuff. So as we're related to a laundry room, but the word unmentionables can, you know, something that is unmentionable can refer to a lot of different things, especially in terms of when you think about what goes on in the home and, You know, it could go in any direction. It could be a game, there could be a game going on here, it could be like a domestic violence situation. There's a lot of different ways that the situation could go based on the imagery with the overturned basket. Is something under the basket? Was there an accident? Or maybe someone's just playing a game, like I said. And I like having that suggestive quality without really telling the viewer what's going on. I have some ideas about what's going on, but I like to leave it up to the viewer to interpret the imagery how they would like to. Also, this piece focuses more on the ground, on the lower portion, whereas a lot of times when we look at artwork or even photographs of architecture or spaces, we deal with a horizon line of sorts and information above and below that. This piece focuses on the floor section, whereas the countertop and the washer and dryer and the laundry are the highest points of the piece. Our focus is really in this area, which I think is an interesting shift in perspective. So this piece is titled Neat Mess, and a common theme, as it seems in my work, is this kitchen counter scenario. With this piece, there's spilt coffee and burnt toast, but the way it's composed is such a aesthetically pleasing way that I think the composition and the way that the composition makes sense maybe brings the supposed mishap into question to an extent. I also like how this piece creates shadows on the wall. In this sense, the shadow of this kind of cupboard shape here actually matches the painted shadow. So we have real cast shadows that are on the wall, and then painted shadows, which are, you know, implied with a change of color or value in the piece. And I think that's an interesting play in terms of how the piece interacts with the wall. Something else I've noticed with this body of work is because this piece is shaped, it's not in the form of a rectangle, I feel that the image can interact some with the architecture in the room, which can sometimes be problematic because it doesn't have four edges that confine the image and make it its own space. Things like baseboards or tags or light switches or other things on the wall can become part of the piece, which can sometimes work, but sometimes can become problematic. I mean, I have some ideas with this kind of counter scenario. I like how the shadow cast, because usually this ledge kind of sticks out from what's below it a little bit in real life. So I was aware that this would create an interesting shadow. However, this wasn't really planned. I was kind of surprised that this worked in this way. My studio currently is in my basement, and it's not a large space, so I kind of have to work with what I have. And that being said, I don't always have an ideal lighting situation, so these pieces aren't lit while I'm working on them the same way that they are once I show them in a gallery space. Okay, so this piece incorporates both found imagery. This image here actually came from this book about children's playhouses and forts, and it was supposed to be some sort of a kind of treehouse without a tree playhouse thing that your dad could build in a weekend if he was a skilled carpenter or something. So that's part of the found imagery. And then the image of these dogs are actually a photograph that I took myself. They're my dogs. What's interesting about this piece is these edges here that are defined are completely imagined. So it incorporates found imagery, imagery that I sought out and took myself, and then also some more imaginative shapes. I wanted it to reference kind of an underground feel. So the majority of this piece takes place kind of in this underground section, and the way that the ladder of the treehouse fort extends below, I think pushes our eyes that way directionally. And with a lot of these paintings, I do a lot of masking. I tape off sections and then cut out shapes with an X-Acto knife. And then I paint that color on top. And then once it's dry, I peel it off. I'll mask another section. So this image right here, this fort thing, is actually 4 shades of brown. but with the 4 shades of brown and the shapes, I was able to portray this structure. So the setting of this piece takes place right outside the home. When you have a smushed car, you don't know, is anyone hurt, is anyone not hurt? Maybe, there's all sorts of things that could have happened in this scenario to end up in this place. It's a beautiful day. We don't really know. Well, some of the dangerous things are just silly, right? Some of them, like the dollhouse fire, is a staged fire, and that being said, it's a painting. It's a painting of a dollhouse fire. So we're always one step removed from what's going on in the piece. The burnt toast and the spilled coffee is kind of this very melodramatic, disastrous morning, right? I think it just has to do with context and about just how we think about our lives in individual situations and looking at the complexity of individual situations in terms of what's meaningful and what's not, what's a big deal and what's not a big deal. So there's no people in these compositions. There's always a presence of people, but no people actually present. And I think once you start to incorporate the figure into the work becomes about the figure. And this work isn't about individual people, it's about the situations. Also, once you deal with the figure, you start to deal with issues surrounding the body, and also the body as an object, the body is politicized, the body is gendered. Is it a man or a woman? Is it an old person or a young person? Are they fat or skinny, or American, or are they Asian? You start to deal with all these issues. A person is not just a person. Therefore, I don't represent people in these pieces because it's not about the person, it's about the situation and their surroundings. I want people to want to look at my work. I want it to be visually compelling so that people will spend time looking. I also want it to be complex enough so that they will continue to look and find different things going on and allow their mind to wander and consider different ideas that may be associated with the representational imagery that I use in the piece. And ultimately, I just hope that people will think about their situation in the larger world and maybe have discussions with other people about what's going on around them.